Welcome to Bharat FM, Swaroop.
Hi. Hello. Thank you for having me over. I'm so excited.
Yeah, we are very excited too. In fact, I think about the 70s quite a bit when I think about you for the simple reason that just as the 70s were ending, 1979, barely as a 21-year-old, I think you were crowned Miss India. It's something that a lot of people may not immediately register, and I'm very interested to know in the 70s what it meant to be a Miss India as a 21-year-old young person in Bombay. Can you reminisce a bit about that?
Actually, I don't think it was anything too great to be a Miss India because we didn't have so much press and television and, PR and stuff like that. But I remember I was about 14 or 15 when my cousins were going to see a Miss India program. And at that time, it just like I had this flickering thought which said, how nice it would be to be a Miss India. And suddenly in 79, I was in Miss India. But it wasn't so great. I think it's more great now. Like when I'm teaching, for example, even the girls in the extreme remote villages in India know that I'm a Miss India. And they're so proud that their teacher is a Miss India. So I think being a Miss India now is greater than what it was when I was in 79.
Which is rather ironic because you were in a city full of glamour at that point.
And another very interesting thing I'll tell you is that I was, at the time, it was the Femina Times of India, Miss India. And unlike it is now, it was always just the Miss India and then the runner-ups. But because my dad was in theatre, I had rival newspapers writing about me, which is very interesting because I was put on the cover of Indian Express and Free Press Journal, and those were the newspapers of that time. Chitralekha had it, and Bombay Samachar, and things like that, which had nothing to do with Times of India. So actually, I was very well known as a Miss India at that time. But I think right now it's more the glamour and all that. It's a big thing now.
Tell me, it might seem a bit silly, but since you are talking about reminiscence, so what exactly did you feel when the crown went up your head?
Okay, so I'll take you back a little bit. It was a Miss Bombay show before, and I was crowned Miss Bombay. And there was the runner-ups, then all the other ones like Miss Delhi and Miss Calcutta and all came. And perhaps I was the only one who was fussing around the least. And I was just sitting in the corner. I very distinctly remember sitting in the corner and just looking at them, glamming up and stuff like that. And I'm wondering, like, what are they up to? In fact, I had worn such small, tiny earrings and accessories that one of the models at that time, she was the top model, her name is Sangeeta Bijlani, she came up to me and she said, Swaroop, will you wear my jewelry because yours is too light? So I said, okay. And she gave me her huge kundan necklace and earrings. And that's what I wore when I won the crown. I was perhaps the one who was most simply dressed. I was wearing a red chiffon bandi. It all worked to my advantage because we were all so young and not trained. And to walk on the ramps with heavy saris and all was so clumsy for the other girls. Perhaps I was the only one who was just breezing it out. And I remember sitting on one crate when they were announcing the names and they go like, who do you think is the winner? And the whole audience goes number 9. So the guy says, number 9 is fine, but we need to know her name. Now that's a very rare thing because, we wore a tag with our numbers, not our names. And our name was just announced once or twice. And actually half the audience knew my name.
Oh, I see.
Which was so fantastic because I must have really stood out, amongst the other girls. And It is the most incredible feeling to have the whole audience clapping for you. And I don't think I can ever describe that feeling, but it was really beautiful.
That sets me up for the next question. Do you remember the question that they asked you as
Oh,
part of
yes.
what was the question and what was your reply?
Okay, so there were two things which went in, my kind of. I was very cool and calm, and one thing they asked every contestant, like they would ask questions when you came on stage. And I remember, like they asked the other girls, and I remember one or two of them were really, taken aback by the questions that were asked to them, and they were kind of rude and impertinent and stuff like that. Well, they asked me, they said, it seems you want to be an actress, so why don't you act for us on stage? And that was a time when we used to hold a card which had our number. We didn't have a sash. That's right. So I had a card in my hand, and I gave the card to the guy, the compere, and I said, "Can you hold that?" So the audience just loved it, like she's like so cool. And then I took the mic from his hand and I talked directly to the audience, and I told them that, this is too short of time for me to act something for you, because I will need to tell you aage kya hua, piche kya hua. But I have a little bit of a mono acting piece which I can do for you. And so I said, okay. And hello, yes, no, 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 yes, no, 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 yeah, yeah, yeah. And I just went on yes and no and yes and no. And then finally I went wrong number. And the audience just loved that. Okay, the common question they asked all of us is that there were 10 of us on stage, and the sponsor was Eagle Flasks. So they asked us what is the similarity between an Eagle Flask and a beautiful woman.
Hmm.
I was number 9. So you don't think that you have 9 minutes to really think, because you're actually listening to everybody talking. And a lot of them said things like they're painted from outside and I don't know, and stuff like that. Well, when it came to me, I just said they're both unbreakable.
Oh,
And,
nice.
they liked it very much because the flask was supposed to be unbreakable, right? So, yeah.
So at that point, you thought you had it in your bag?
No, I didn't think I had it. I wasn't thinking.
Okay.
But, yeah,
From what I know of your background, Swaroop, you come from a somewhat scholarly family. Your mother was an oncologist, your father was a very serious theater artist. And I know for a fact that you were quite a voracious reader. So you were a bit of a nerd at that point, weren't you?
No, not
You weren't?
really. No. I was a dropout. How could I be a nerd?
No, you can be a nerd without going to a school.
So I must tell your listeners this. Of course, I am banned. I mean, till a long time, I was banned from telling my friends' kids why I stopped studying.
Okay.
Because I'm the wildest aunt out of all the friends' moms. And the thing is that I dropped out of college because I failed in the subject I knew very well. So I did the old ISC, and I went straight into the second year of college, and I passed that. And when I was in the third year of college, I had logic and English literature, and I passed in my Hindi, even though I didn't read the textbook. But I failed in English literature because I went into the exam and I looked at the question paper and I said, I know everything. It's so boring to write. So I just wrote my name and roll number and gave my paper and came back.
I
And
see.
then I got a firing from my mom because she says, "You're the stupidest girl in the world. Because if you know you're supposed to write," and I didn't know anything about my Hindi textbook, and I wrote a composition of 21 pages, and I passed in Hindi. I didn't know anything about logic, but I just wrote, and I passed. So I passed in all the subjects I didn't know anything about, and failed in the subject I knew.
Well, yeah. To complete this particular thread of my questions, 79 is about 3 years away from India coming into color television age.
Yeah.
We got it in 1982 for the Asian Games.
Yes.
Was there any television coverage at all of Miss India in
No.
those days? There was none. So it was
There
all
wasn't.
print. It was all
Just
print
print.
newspapers.
Yeah, just
Were
print.
there any magazine covers that you mentioned a couple of them?
Oh yeah, I actually had done the Femina cover before I became Miss India.
Okay.
Just, I think it was like 2-3 months before that. And I did a lot of covers. I mean, there was a beautiful magazine called Bombay. I'd done, if you remember that, do you remember that magazine called Bombay?
I do.
So I've done the cover of that, and I've done all the covers, And I mean, I have this huge scrapbook which the Indian National Theatre Publicity Department made for me, which was
Right.
covered by all the newspapers possible. Yeah.
Right. Two years after that event, you had your first major break as a debut-making film with Rishikesh Mukherjee's Dharam Garam.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a huge break. Rishikesh Mukherjee was a giant of a film director. And what I'm trying to find out from you, what were your feelings when you were first approached? How were you approached by, did he approach or someone else did on his?
Actually, his producer, if you remember, Anand, the guy who was playing my brother in the film, he and Bharat Rangacharya, his associate director, called me up. But the first person to actually talk to me was Yashji. And actually, Yash Chopra had signed me before Rishida signed me.
For Nakhuda?
No, actually he signed me and I did Sabal.
I see, okay.
And then it was Nakhuda.
Tell me about what's your memory of Dharam Garam with Amol Palekar? And it was a typical Rishikesh Mukherjee film, yeah.
It was great fun doing that film because Amol is an incredibly sweetheart. And then there was Utpal Da, who was so much fun. Of course, Amol ji, I know, Hangal Sam was like a good guy, And then there was Kiran Begale, and there was Deena Ben, and Shatruji was there, which we didn't really interact so much. But I remember we'd gone to Karnala, the bird sanctuary, to do all the outdoors. And we had the greatest time there. Rishida, suffering from gout, would insist on playing cricket. And he would sit and bowl. And, I got some lovely pictures of that time, of course. We had a great time. I remember one very nice thing is how tough it was. Is Rishida, being an editor, edited everything in his mind, right? I mean, his thing was edited before he actually shot it. So I remember that one scene in which, we're sitting in the veranda place of my house. He put a camera on a crane and he made us do the scene. He did the whole scene in one shot. It was like my close-up, like it began with, say, Amol Palekar's close-up to a two-shot of Hangal and him, with me coming in, then three of us together, my close, his close, this close, that, and Amol would go, Rishida, such a long shot, and Rishida would say, tum sab theatre ke actors ho, karo. So he, it was very nice, of course, but we used to do all these weird things, which was very funny because I really don't know how I survived that film. Because it was the first time I was doing a film. And when you have to do such long shots, and Rishita would not really be one for taking, reshots and retakes rather and things like that. I think I did pretty well for myself.
What specific instructions were coming from him as a director? Was he very articulate in telling you, or what, did he leave it to the artist's judgment?
Oh yeah, he would leave it to us really. Except, before he had explained to us what our characters were and, things like that. So after that, there was not detailed explanations, of course, and he would, yeah.
Another film I would like to talk about before we graduate to the main part of what I'm coming to. Nakhuda, you were with Raj Kiran. Nakhuda had some excellent songs. Of course,
It had excellent songs, yeah.
A lot of people don't realize, but Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan made, I think, his Bollywood debut with Qawwali there.
In there, yes.
Yeah, and your song, Tumhari Palko Ki Chilmano Mein.
It's such a hit, isn't it?
It was a big hit. What are your memories of that song and Raj Kiran, who unfortunately has just fallen into tragic life?
Nakhuda, horrible memories.
Oh, really? So tell us about horrible memories. Yeah, we love horrible memories.
In fact, I had better memories of doing Sawal than I had of doing Nakhuda, because Ramesh Talwar was a fantastic director.
No, we want to hear Nakhuda because it's horrible memories.
No, I remember I hated doing that song. It was the time of that old camera.
Right.
With reflectors, and the reflector, and we were shooting it in Khandala, full sun reflector in your eyes can hardly stay open, and then you're expected to be romantic. Oh, that was tough.
Yeah.
And I really don't have any memories of that film, except that I really didn't want to do it.
I see.
I was already doing Sawal, and I was in this 3-film contract with Yash Raj. And
right. If my calculation is right, you had done about 6 films by 1984 when you came across what became a sort of an iconic part of your career, Yeh Jo Hai Zindagi.
Yes.
Let's talk about that a bit in some detail, because I think now that it's rerunning on Doordarshan, there is a sudden discovery of Yeh Jo Hai Zindagi's great virtues. Let's talk about that.
So Yeh Jo Hai Zindagi was the greatest fun, and it was, I think I had the best time shooting it. Not only was it fun, but we really did our best. And I think you saw quality comedy in that. Mayank, you must understand how difficult it was to do it, because the directors themselves were learning the media at that time. The medium rather, not media. And they didn't know exactly, there was those huge cameras, pneumatic tapes. Every scene we did it at least 6 times. In the senses, we did the long shots, then again we did the 2 shots and the 2 shots and the 2 shots and the 2 shots, and then we did all the closes. So every time we kept on doing it so much. And Renu was the editor, and she had like lots and lots of stuff to edit from. But it's very difficult when you're doing a comedy to do it so often. Like to be laughing all the time, and the punchlines and stuff like that. And this was original sound, of course, but it was in that old time. The lights were extreme. I used to get tanned on the set. The lights were so hard on you, kind of thing. And but we really enjoyed, because we were best friends.
Right.
All of us were so close to each other, and we just actually loved each other so much that you could see that in the performance. Nobody was trying to beat each other. Like if it was my scene, to bakaida mujhe scene diya jata tha. It wasn't much later. I did some comedy with some other actors. I won't name them, but I remember one actor who would, just look flat straight into the camera. He was not bothered whether, it's interacting with me, who's on his left or right. He's just looking straight and, giving his punchlines. we didn't have all that type of a problem. We really cared for each other and we cared for each other's performance. When people gave each other, kind of tips, we kind of
Right.
listened. And I
Right.
think I was the juniorest of all because the rest of them came from the Film Institute, having been trained actors. And Shafi Bai was my guru. I did my first play with Shafi Bai. Do you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I did Tokhar. Remember where Paresh
Right.
had a play made on Equus? But I was
Right. Right.
acting with Shafi Rai. I was playing that. At 18, I was playing a 45-year-old psychiatrist.
Oh, I see.
And that was my first play, and it was with Shafi Rai.
I see.
I did lots of plays with him, and he helped me in acting, and he taught me acting. So when I did Yeh Jo Hai Zindagi with him, it was so easy.
Right.
Yeah.
You had told me before Yeh Jo Hai Zindagi was offered to you, simultaneously you had a sort of a corporate
Yes,
kind
it
of.
was a family story, a business story, and it was a very glam role. And the people who were doing it had a whole episode ready to show me what the look was like and everything. And Kundan and Manjul really didn't have all that ready. But they were such lovely people that I decided that I would work with them. The other thing, Mayank, was that had a huge cast, whereas this had a husband and wife and brother and Satish. So if you notice, there are 3 men and me.
Right.
I love that. So I decided to go with that.
Mm-hmm. So but that was purely on instinct that you went for Yeh
Yes.
Jo Hai Zindagi?
Yes. I knew I wouldn't go wrong with that, and I didn't. I think I
Right.
made a great choice.
Another feature that I would like you to talk a bit about is the presence of Kundan Shah.
Kundan is the craziest director in the world.
Because people remember he followed it up with one of Hindi cinema's most celebrated black comedies, Jaane
Not
Bhi To
followed it
Yaro.
up. It was before.
I'm mixing up the dates then.
Yeah.
So that makes it even more interesting that he's coming on the success of Jaane Bhi To Yaro to Yeh Jo Hai Zindagi.
Yeah.
Did he bring any of those black humor instructions to this? Because this was a totally different kind of.
He didn't, because this was not meant to be like that. But he used to, sometimes we used to overhear him, talking when we did these fabulous shots, when he would say, "Ki mere artists sab pagal hai."
I see.
And I thought that is so beautiful, like I remember once he walked up to somebody and he said, "Swaroop, come on, do it." So that girl goes, "I'm not Swaroop." So she's like, "Okay, then that is Swaroop." He was mad,
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
So he got that element of craziness in the direction and in the script. And we kind of, translated it so well in our performance.
Renu's character was this very ditzy sort of a young woman. What kind of challenges did you face playing that? Because you are anything but.
Oh, come on, it's so much fun doing these dirt roles, like sometimes. But she wasn't really bad, but I think it's fun, just like I was talking to the director of Uri,
Mm-hmm.
and there was this scene in the film Uri in which my character gets lost and she's found, and then she comes, and as soon as I come to my house, I'm crying at the top of my head, like I'm just bawling away. So I did the first shot and it was okay. And then the camera said, "No, we need to do it again because we made a mistake." Then the second shot was okay, but there was a retake because the artists around were not correct, the junior artists. And then the light and something. So I landed up doing that 3, 4, 5 times. And the director comes and apologizes to me. And I said, "No, don't apologize. I'm actually enjoying myself because I'm the type of actress, if I get it right the minute I get it right, I can go on doing the retake because I'm living that role. And I know once it's okay, I'm not going to get a chance to do it again."
Right.
So you understand what I mean? So the chance to do a character like Renu, who is so mad, and it's fun. It was fun, and I really don't judge my characters because it's super fun doing different characters.
Renu set you up as a huge star. I mean, I met you just around that time in
Yeah.
85, at the beginning of that, when you were already at the peak of your stardom.
Right.
I have seen what it meant to you because we used to interact quite a bit, and I've seen you walk down in Naginda on Naginda's Master Road and the Dalal Street area, and people freezing in the middle of their tracks. I remember one particular incident which I wrote about, and I think it's bears repeating in this interview. I remember you had come to visit me at my office in the Fountain area, and
Yeah.
it was an old building, it's one of those old buildings that exist still in that area.
Yes. Yes.
And there was a massive staircase, which was a lovely staircase once upon a time. But
Yeah.
all these crass men working on the Dalal Street had
Spitting.
gumped it up, and they used to spit their pan and all. And I remember you and I were walking up once, and suddenly these two young men were about to spit, and they saw you, and they just essentially gulped what they were about to spit. That's the kind of stardom you were in the midst of. Why don't you talk a bit about what it meant to be a star like
I don't know. I don't know. These are the rare occasions. I think in Yeh Jo Hai Zindagi, like Rakesh Bedi said, that we were working so hard that we hardly ever got out to enjoy our success. So we don't really know what big stars we were, except when we heard stories from people around us, because that the traffic is less at that time, and in Delhi people actually go. The these what are they called? Matchmaking people. They got instructions like to find a match for their son, a girl who was like Renu.
Yes.
I mean, that was the funniest thing I've ever heard in my whole life. And actually, you see, what happened is that my character Renu was so lovable that I've never really experienced, except once or twice, I've never had bad experiences from fans. I've always had people who looked at you fondly, or people who liked you, or people who wanted to meet you, that type of a thing, not, the negative type of,
Right.
Unwanted attention.
Right.
So I don't know really,
Okay.
Another thing is I'm very crazy. So even now, I sometimes decide to go by public bus, or I'm walking on the road. And I remember when my kids were there, I used to do it a lot because I didn't want them to be deprived of all these things. And like we would be playing on the beach, and somebody would suddenly come and say, "Are you Swaroop Sampat?" And I'd look blankly and say, "No, sorry, who's that?" And they would go, "You look exactly like her." And I say, "Yeah, isn't that nice? I'm so happy that I look like Swaroop Sampat."
Yeah.
I always did that. Yeah,
Right.
I've actually traveled in DST buses, public buses, and I still do.
Right.
And yeah.
You kept what might be called a leisurely pace as an actress. After Yeh Jo Hai Zindagi, you had the world to choose from. But I find when I go through your IMDb credits that in the 90s, for instance, early 90s, it's really thins out. I think
didn't
it's
do any
due to your
films.
family was that the
Yeah.
case?
Yeah.
And why did you make that choice?
Two reasons. One is that, see, I got married and I had kids. And then I was like 35, 38, and all that age, you didn't get heroine roles.
Right.
And I didn't want to do sister roles, which I hated. I did one and I swore never to do it again. And I was too young to play mothers. I tried it with Satya, but it didn't work because I practically looked young, as old as the hero heroine. So I didn't do it. And so that's why for a long time I didn't do any films. Till I did that Gujarati film called Saptapadi.
Right.
And after that, I did Ki and Ka and Uri. That's it.
I find that in the last 2, 3 years, you seem to be reinvigorating your acting work. Say you had a television series called The Great Indian Dysfunctional Family in 2018.
Yeah, yeah.
That was followed by the huge hit Uri, The Surgical Strike, where you played
Uri.
Vicky Kaushal's mother,
Yeah.
Suhasini Shergill.
Yes.
And then you did a short film called Nanosophobia. But I
That's
find
right.
but now I find that you are on the verge of, or you're already in the midst of shooting The White Tiger based on
Oh,
the.
I finished my work.
Oh, it's finished.
It's
How
a very
was it?
small role.
How was it working on a celebrated novel?
Very nice. My character is not there in the film, in the novel.
Yeah.
Actually, my character is a male politician.
And you play a
And
female Bihar chief minister, I suppose.
yes, yes. It's something that's not at all Swaroop.
Okay.
From no angle can that person be me. So it was nice fun doing that. Of course, I got a lot of firings. No. I mean, I enjoyed doing it, and I especially did it because of the director. It was a very small role. But you see, Mayank, I don't have a problem doing small roles. Like what people say, small roles. I have fun. So I don't mind doing a big role, but I don't mind doing a small role too. It's the character that I'm playing, and I really enjoy doing it.
Right.
So it doesn't matter whether I'm playing this crash, crude woman who's got pan in her mouth. She actually spits on the table, into the teacup, and she's corrupt, and that type of a person. It's fantastic fun to do that. I mean, just think how jealous all the people can get. Think of the different type of lives we can lead.
Right, right. You married to a highly celebrated actor. You have been in relationship with him for a very long time, from the age of 16, 17, I think.
Yeah.
How is it that the two of you have never really worked together in a direct sense?
Isn't it funny? We've done 2 films which we are together. I mean, not together. One of and it's such a funny thing, is that there were 2 people who are doing the lead couple, a pair, that is in Lori, Shabana and Farooq, and Nasiruddin Shah and me. And in that film, Paresh has done a small, tiny little role of a lawyer, but we have not interacted together in the film.
I see.
Now in Lori, he's doing a very important character, and I'm playing like a 2-minute role, but again, we don't interact.
I see.
Just
Why?
full circle.
Have you consciously chosen not to work together, or things haven't come your way?
I'll tell you frankly, I would love to work with him. I don't know about him.
I see.
Because we always have this big panga, because he's a very serious actor. And I'm those kind who really enjoys life all the time.
Right.
So it doesn't work, because when we do a play together, I always get a firing. And his line to me is always "picnic ban karo."
I see.
And he's like all grim and proper, doing his things, and I can't do that. So, but it's nice to work with him.
We are about halfway through our conversation. I think I should shift gears a bit and come to something that has been your passion for as long as I remember. I remember in the 80s, you used to talk about education being the focus of your life, which used to sound rather incongruous at that point. Because you were emerging as a huge star, and I was trying to reconcile what you were saying with what you were doing. But travel 15, 20 years hence, and you find that you ended up with a serious PhD in education from England. And the focus has been using drama as a tool. Why don't you tell our listeners and viewers what it is that drove you in that direction?
Okay, so I had stopped working, but remember, I was this girl who was working from the age of 16, 17, and suddenly I was at home, not working, which is becoming very difficult. And I was doing things like I studied Ikebana and stuff like that. Then I was in the children's, my son's PTA, in their school PTA, and I was the chairperson.
Mhm.
And there was this offer to learn about learning disabilities,
I see.
and no teacher offered to go. So I, as the chairperson, offered to go to learn.
Mhm.
And it was working out very conveniently because it was like for 2 hours or something in the evening when my kids were playing, and they were a little old by then. So I went and learned about learning disabilities. And surprisingly, I really did well. I got a distinction in that.
Mhm.
Around that time, my husband literally caught me reading some trashy romantic novels. And he says, "Is this what you have come to?"
Mhm.
And I was so ashamed. So I filled up the form for a PhD, master's in English literature.
I see.
I did my master's, and
Uh-huh.
now I was teaching. So I wrote to England, to a university, and asked them for a 3-month course to
I
learn
see.
about drama and how you could use drama to teach. Because in India, people don't really use drama to teach properly. So I wrote to them, but they wrote back saying that looking at your letter and your CV, we recommend that you do a PhD.
I see.
And I'm like, I don't know if I want to do a PhD and spend so much money on my learning, because now my children are going to slowly get into college and they will want to go abroad. And you know how difficult it was, at that time, with
Mhm.
the foreign exchange problems, and, like you were not allowed money and things like that. So I said, I don't know if I want to waste the Indian exchange on me, but they gave me a full scholarship.
I see.
And they allowed me to live in the halls for free when I was there. And they changed a college rule, which was 2 hours in a day for a part-time PhD. They made it 1 month in a year.
Okay.
So they made it, I mean, they just kind of made it impossible for me to say no. And at that time, I was doing that play, if you remember, I met you then,
Mhm.
the play called Shadi@barbadi.com.
Right.
And so I was traveling to America. So it would be Bombay, London, New York, and New York, London, Bombay. So I would take my break at London and go to Worcester and then come back to London and come. So I was getting a free air ticket too. I just did not have a reason to say no.
I
So
see.
I
Okay.
did the PhD, and I'm so proud that that was a very difficult thing, because remember, I was an actress who was just an ordinary teacher. I didn't know anything about research methodology, etc. And I got my PhD without any amendments. I think that's
I see.
just fantastic.
You
So,
know, that perhaps answers my next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Did you
yes,
have problems being taken seriously in the world of academia, given your showbiz career?
that's more than showbiz. There is this huge problem. I'm a Miss India. I'm an actress. I'm beautiful. How can I be intelligent?
Right.
I mean, to be an academic, you have to be very boring. And you are not allowed to talk the way I do. You can't
Right.
be cool. I mean, you just have to be very boring. The other thing is that since I studied in England, my methods are totally different. Like my PhD is written in first person. I doubt if any Indian PhD would be allowed there. They don't, in India, they still don't allow you to write a conference paper in first person.
Right.
It's ridiculous. I mean, they just don't know that you can't write an actual research in third person. You have to write it in first person.
Right.
So I'm breaking all the norms. And that makes it very difficult for the academia to allow it to happen.
Right. Uh, would you care to talk a bit about what it is that you focus on in your dissertation and whether it is scalable in real life?
Yes, it is. We can talk about it. It is very scalable because I had a very interesting experience. Is that in 2000, I finished in 2006, and in 2007, in a newspaper, there was a small article of that size, and it said that the CM of Gujarat is starting a Bal University, a university for children, and blah 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 blah. So I wrote to him. In fact, Mayank, I must tell you this, which is very interesting, is that I wrote to all the high authorities in India, everybody, all the ministers at the union level, state level, everyone, and I offered my service, and I said, I'm ready to come to teach. I've done this incredible PhD, and I have this lovely method, and I'll do it for free. And I just want to do something for my country. Nobody ever replied to me except the CM of Gujarat. That was Mr. Narendra Modi. He wrote to me and he called me over to his office. Like, I got a call from his office saying that Narendra Bhai will see you next week. And I said, super. So I went to Gandhinagar and I met him. At that time, I learned two very, very interesting things. I'd love to share it with you. One is that in the case, in the course of the conversation, he asked me, how many teachers will you train? And I said, 40. And he said, bus. And I said, sir, I will train 40 teachers, which is a huge amount. And he says, bus. So I said, sir, in the next year I will teach, more and then more in the cascade method. He just kept quiet and he says, okay, start. That was one thing I learned from him, and I'll come back to it. Another thing he told me is when I went, WHO this and WHO that, and he says, don't give me WHO figures. Give me Indian figures. And I'm like, sir, WHO. And he says, no, I want Indian figures. And these two things stayed with me for a long time. And I kept on wondering, why did he say that? Because he's incredibly intelligent. So there must be a reason behind it. So when he told me about this bus 40, I kept on thinking about it. And that's where my scalability came. Because I realized that if I just went with 40, I would never be able to reach anywhere. In Gujarat, there are 2.5 lakh teachers. Maharashtra, there are 5.5 lakh teachers. I'm talking about government schools. In UP, there are something like 7 lakh teachers. You see the amount. That when would you reach somewhere if you went on teaching 40 at a time?
Right.
So I worked on scalability, and that's one thing I'm really good at. So in 2014, I planned the program, and 2015 I taught 2.5 lakh. That is in American 200,000, right?
Right.
200,000 teachers simultaneously.
I see.
And that is the best teacher training program ever to have happened in Gujarat. So I've been working on scalability, digital education, and all that for a long time. And I'm very good at it. You see, I'm trained to work in front of the camera.
Right.
If I teach, you would believe that I am in the room because I can face a camera, you see.
Right.
That was one thing. The other thing is that WHO questionnaire made me question my work, and I have made a new set of core-like skills which are not following the WHO, and I think mine are better than theirs.
In terms of the curriculum that you would have created as a document, I presume it does exist. And if it exists, what is the access? How does one access it? Is it online? Do you sell it? what's the way for people interested in using drama as a tool to
Okay,
get?
so the thing is, it was going to go. I did one that the curriculum I worked with. I worked with Gujarat and Maharashtra with that curriculum, which I worked with the state. In fact, we were going to publish it now, but sadly the COVID-19 happened, and now I have to rethink my curriculum a bit for at least 2 years. But my curriculum is not. It's for free. The copyright says Creative Common copyright,
Okay.
only attribution.
Right.
The reason I have it is because I thought for a very long time, Mank, and I went that the Veds don't have a copyright, the Vedas, but the Vedas are so popular, like you cannot misquote the Gita without being caught.
Right.
But people like me, my work can be easily stolen by these great big NGOs that are flourishing all over the world, who think anybody's work is their work. So just for that, I'm going in for a Creative Common copyright with attribution.
Okay. Now, to wrap this part of our interaction, I presume, again, it's globally scalable as well, because
Absolutely. You know, I taught this in Booster with students from Booster and Birmingham, and it works so well with them. This works with everybody. It is such a classical program.
Right, right. If you were to adopt drama as a tool, say, for a country like the US, how does one fit your curriculum into this? Is it like an open source software which can be written up to suit the American needs?
Actually, what you do is we need to train the teachers how to use it.
Okay.
And it's not such a long training. The other thing is that it is already done, the curriculum is done class-wise. So it's a set of 53 classes with the spiral curriculum. And all you need to do is get trained on how to use it. And it's not such a difficult thing. And now we can even do it online, because now everybody is becoming such a great, expert to teaching, online. So now it's becoming easier, but it works with everybody, because I worked from rural India to IB schools in India, and from Nandurbar to Mumbai and Delhi, it works everywhere. I've taught in England. It just works everywhere.
Okay, okay. Ashish, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you. I was muted.
Okay, now we are in the last 10 minutes of the interaction. I was wondering if you would like to get some questions from some of our listeners and viewers for Swaroop.
Yeah, so I had put that on our chat, the Zoom chat, that if people have questions, they can post it in the chat. But I have not received any yet. But
Okay.
I have one question.
Please go ahead.
Okay, great.
So first of all, whether I call you Swaroop Ji, Swaroop, Dr. Rawal, I'm confused. Okay.
You can just call me Swaroop.
Okay, Swaroop. So very recently, I don't know if it was a forward from a TikTok or somebody, it was a video that you guys made with you and Paresh, where you guys keep talking all the time and he wins. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Because it was very exciting for me to watch that.
Okay, so what I did is I got up on the first day of the lockdown, and I realized that I'm not going to be going out. So let me do a class from home. And I started doing it. It was a 21-day life skill challenge, where I taught a bit of life skills, and I gave some exercises, games, and all activities for them to do. And then I remembered this beautiful game, which I said I'm going to play with Paresh and put it on. So this was the section where I'm teaching communication. And in communication, you actually need to listen to a person. And if you listen to a person, you actually stop talking.
That's true.
But Paresh did not listen to me, so he went on talking. And I listened to him and I broke down in laughter. So it was that.
But wasn't the point that is exactly what you are supposed to do, and that's why he won, right? That you're not supposed to listen.
No, I mean, he is so good and he's really funny, you know. So I'm even not acting. This is a absolute candid video. And I did it on my iPhone. There's no question of an edit or anything, you know.
It was
We
wonderful.
just shot it blind.
It was wonderful. I loved it. So thank you very much for that. So it seems like Deepali has a question. Deepali, I'm going to unmute you. I hope you're ready. Here you go.
Hi, Dipali.
I'm trying to unmute her.
Yes. I think she's muted herself.
Yeah, now.
Hi, Dipali.
Hi, Swaroop. First of all, I can't get enough of you because I have Naram Garam in theatre. I was, at that
Very
time,
young, yes.
yeah, Naram Garam. And we have seen your Yeh Jo Hai Zindagi. Wait for that new episode of Yeh Jo Hai Zindagi. Two things. One is for the comedy Yeh Jo Hai Zindagi, and I loved all the characters in Yeh Jo Hai Zindagi. So you used to get your comic timing so perfect. And I have a question about that. What was the technique? I mean, it used to be always on spot.
Actually, I love doing comedy, and but the thing is that I know I've got better comedians in my house, and nobody can beat Paresh at it, of course. But yeah, and as you would notice, we're so different. So my comedy is the comedy which is straight, and it's just that I love doing it. I mean, I love acting all different types. Deepali, don't be mistaken by that. I love doing crying roles too.
Uh-huh.
When you saw how lovely, did you see Uri?
I
I
saw
think, yeah, I love doing that. I love crying and being lost and all that. So it's just that I am actually what you would call an nautanki. So I love doing drama. Yeah.
Okay. So that's really. And
Thank you.
I have one more trivial thing, but I always used to be fascinated with that big till on your chin.
It's not a till actually, it's still there.
Okay.
So I was in the fifth grade, and I fell off the swing, and I got hurt over here, and it's like a whole lot of stitches here. And I think I'm one of those gutsy people who decided not to do a plastic surgery and just go on with the scar because I think it adds character to your face.
It used to add a lot of charm to it, I must say.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Great.
Yep. Thanks.
I always admired the looks, the simplicity, but the confidence in your voice. And your voice, very, it is. But the movies.
Thank you. Mayank, did you know that? Is that, Dipali, you must hear this. Mayank, did you know that? I don't know if you remember, but when I did Nakuna and Naram Garam and all these films, they were a little, except Yashji was totally for my voice. But a lot of people used to be like, is this voice okay? Because it wasn't a typical heroine voice.
No, it wasn't. I agree.
Yeah, but I remember, it was so funny. Is like just 6-7 months back, I was, talking on the phone in the Delhi lounge in the airport, and suddenly somebody from behind turns around and said, "Aren't you Swaroop?" So I said, "Yeah." He says, "I have loved your voice."
Yes.
And so many people talk about my voice now. I wish those directors of that time realized that no, it is a nice voice.
I think one of the movies dubbed it, right?
Naram Garam.
Naram Garam dubbed it.
My performance would have been 100% better if it was not dubbed.
Farida Jalal dubbed it.
Farida Jalal. And Farida Jalal's voice is such a squeaky voice as
I
compared
know.
to mine.
It didn't match at all.
It didn't match at all.
But why was it dubbed? Why was it dubbed?
Now, can I say that they were crazy?
Yeah, you should have said it even then.
I did tell them that. They didn't listen.
Okay, what was Rishikesh Mukherjee's response when I'm sure this debate would have come up about the voice?
I don't know. He had some weird things to tell me.
Really?
And then I asked Yashji, and Yashji said, "No, I think your voice is perfectly fine, and they're not going to dub you in after."
Uh-huh.
I mean, not get somebody else to dub for you. So Sawal and Nakuda, I've dubbed my own voice.
Right. No, it's interesting. I don't think people realize that part of, for instance, in Yeh
They
Jo Hai
do, but
Zindagi,
they probably just don't care.
no, in Yeh Jo Hai
It's so
Zindagi, you used
stupid.
it well.
I know, of course, my voice is fantastic. See how
Yeah.
well I've used it in Ki and Ka.
Right.
And even in Uri.
Yeah.
Yes. And we really felt for you. You know, we were
Thank
in part of
you.
the tragedy that you know, the dementia that you were having in the movie. So
Thank you.
yeah.
I think we are almost at the end of this, Ashish. If there is nothing more, we should liberate Swaroop from this now.
Yes.
Ashish,
Sorry. I was
Thank you so
muted.
much for the opportunity, by the way.
No, thank you very much for actually coming on our show. So thank you. We just started with this Stars Aligned, and you are the very first one. So you have inaugurated our show, Stars Aligned. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much, Ashish and Mayank. Thank you very much. As you
no,
know, I
Swaroop.
enjoyed this so much. I love talking, you know that.
I know you've been a blabbermouth for as long as I've known you. So
I know.
always welcome. It's a pleasure. Thank you for your time. I greatly appreciate that you agreed
Thank
and
you.
talked about this. And we are
Thank you.
pleased and thrilled to have you. All the best, and do let us know what next is coming up.
I will do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.